I am 79 years old. I sit alone in this study on a very slow afternoon. The light is dim, dust hangs in the air, and the clock on the wall patiently counts each second very softly. There is no other sound. Strangely enough, after a lifetime of talking so much, what remains is silence. I am not thinking about achievements. I am not thinking about lessons. I am simply sitting here in the quiet that remains after arguments that ended long ago. This room is full of books, papers, notes, underlined sentences, arguments that were once very sharp. They helped me be right many times. I look around and realize that everything is still here. Only the people who once sat across from me are not. I have lived long enough to understand that feeling. I am 79 years old, and I have won many arguments in my life. But I have also lost many people. Not because I was cruel. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone. I simply believed that if I was right enough, if my reasoning was tight enough, then everything would be fine. That people would understand. That they would stay. But time passed. The arguments ended. And with them, the conversations disappeared. What confuses me now is not where I was wrong. It is that there were so many times when I was right. And yet when I looked across the table, there was no one left sitting there to share that victory with me. And in this silence, for the first time, I ask myself whether being right was never enough. When I was young, I truly believed that being right was strength. That in every relationship, logic was what lasted the longest. I believed that if my arguments were clear enough, tight enough, convincing enough, others would understand. And if they understood, they would stay. Every argument I won felt like progress, a sign that I was moving in the right direction. I grew used to responding faster than listening, used to finding flaws in other people's reasoning instead of noticing how they felt. At the time, I did not think I was hurting anyone. I only thought I was doing the right thing. But now, at 79, sitting in this room and looking around, I see one thing very clearly. Those victories did not leave anyone sitting here with me. The arguments that were once so sharp now lie silently on paper. They do not answer me back. And I begin to understand that being right may make you feel steady in the moment, but it does not keep people with you if you forget their feelings. Then I remember the relationships that slowly cracked. Not because of big fights, not because of hatred, but because of exhaustion. No one stood up and said, "We are finished." No doors were slammed shut. There were only messages that came less often, calls that were not returned, silences that lasted longer than usual. My phone contact list did not empty because of death, but because of distance. I could still call, but I no longer knew what to say. And I realized something very hard to accept. Being right can end an argument, but it can also end a relationship if it is the only thing you bring with you. Some people do not leave because they lose. They leave because they are tired of having to prove that their feelings matter too. Looking back, I cannot remember which arguments I won. Those details fade very quickly. But I remember very clearly the times when I could have been silent but was not. Moments when someone said something illogical, not well structured, but deeply true for them. And instead of listening, I chose to correct them, to argue back, to prove something. There are times when people do not need you to be right. They only need you to be there. But I did not realize that while there was still time, the most memorable moments of my life did not happen when someone admitted I was right. They happened in very small moments when no one was trying to prove anything, when a sentence was allowed to pass, when an opinion was not dismantled, when silence was used to stay not to win. And then the day comes when there is no one left to argue with, and I am forced to stay with myself. No opponents, no reasoning, only me, and questions that do not need answers. I begin to distinguish something I never clearly saw before. Regret over being wrong is easier to bear than the ache of having lacked kindness. Being wrong can be corrected, but the moments when you chose to be right instead of choosing to stay cannot be undone. There are times when being right matters less than whether you are still sitting there or not. And when there is no one left to talk to, right and wrong become very small, almost meaningless. In this silence, I begin to see clearly the loneliness of victory. A victory with no one to share it with is no longer a victory. It is only a quiet room with one person who was once very proud of always being right. And then something very strange happened, not in any dramatic moment, but within this long stretch of quiet. I began to realize that the problem was never whether I was right or wrong. The problem was the role I kept choosing in every relationship. I always chose to be the one who was right, the one with the answers, the one who corrected other people's words, the one who ended conversations with a perfectly formed argument. I rarely chose to be the one who stayed, the one who sat a little longer, the one who let someone else's story be told all the way through, even when it didn't make sense. Looking back, I was like a soldier who walked off the battlefield victorious, only to find nothing around him. No comrades, no opponents, just a victory no one witnessed. That was when I understood that some victories carry no joy, only silence. I spent many years proving that I was right. I thought that was how I protected my worth. But the longer time passed, the clearer it became that this need to prove myself was more a habit than a choice. I never stopped to ask why I was saying what I said, whether it was to understand each other better or simply to win. And when you always choose to win, you slowly get used to standing alone. No one leaves in anger. They just quietly step away, leaving you with flawless arguments and a room that grows quieter by the day. At some point, I grew tired of having to be right. Not because I lacked reasons, but because I no longer saw where they were taking me. I began to feel lighter imagining that I didn't have to rebut everything, didn't have to correct every sentence, didn't have to prove that I understood better. For the first time, I allowed myself to be silent without feeling defeated. And in that silence, I noticed something I had never seen before. What remains in the end is not reasoning, it is presence. It is whether you are there or not when someone needs to be heard. It is whether you choose to stay, even when you could win. When I think of the people who left, I don't remember them for the arguments we had. I remember them for very small moments, a quiet evening sitting together, a time when nothing was said, but everything was understood. Those moments didn't need anyone to be right. They only needed two people to stay. And suddenly, I understood that my value does not lie in how many times I have won. It lies in the moments when I was truly present, however few, however late. I don't need to be right to have meaning. I don't need to win to be remembered. There's a strange lightness in accepting that, as if I finally set down something I'd been carrying for far too long without realizing how heavy it was. I began to feel grateful for the people who stayed, even when I was difficult to be with, grateful that they gave me chances I didn't recognize at the time. And right now, as I sit in this study, I don't open a book. I don't write another note. I just sit still. For the first time, I don't feel the need to fill the silence. And in that moment, I realize that perhaps this is the first time I am truly staying with myself. I know I don't have much time left to fix what has already passed. There are conversations that ended long ago. There are people who will never come back for me to say that I should have been silent a little longer that day. I accept that. At this age, you learn to live with what cannot be undone. But if you are listening to me now, perhaps you still have time. So I want to ask you one question, not for you to answer me, but for you to answer yourself. In the most important relationships in your life, are you trying to be right, or are you trying to stay? There are arguments I no longer remember the words of, but I remember very clearly the feeling of the room falling quiet afterward. There are victories whose price was a distance that could never be closed again. If I have learned anything at this age, it is that not every argument is worth winning. Not because you are wrong, but because what you lose by winning may be far greater than what you keep. If an image of someone you have argued with the most, but who still matters the most, has just appeared in your mind, then you understand what I mean. If this resonates with you, share it with that person. No long explanation is needed. Just let them know you are still thinking of them. And if you want, leave a line below. The last time you chose silence instead of proving you were right, what happened? I read every line. It makes this room feel a little less quiet. And perhaps somewhere it will help you choose to stay one more time.